During the third episode of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage, Mandy tells her husband the truth about her enormous credit card debt. She has accrued $112,000 in outstanding balances between American Express, Discover, MasterCard, and Visa. In addition, the most serious accusation was lodged when Mandy took her ex-boyfriend to the emergency department to treat a fractured wrist. Georgie secretly asked Jim for the name of his wife's ex-boyfriend. The next day at work, afterwards, he follows the sober drinker to a dilapidated studio flat, where he writes the 19-year-old a bad check. Georgie is about to cash it when the aforementioned ex-boyfriend storms into Medford Mutual, intent on robbing the bank and reclaiming Mandy's money. Georgie, on the other hand, flees danger in order to settle Mandy's debt. Georgie and Mandy decide to work nights at home. The last scene in Season 5 of Young Sheldon shows Georgie driving a tow truck while Mandy works as a waitress at the Bluebell Diner. It's one of 3 hidden messages for those who enjoyed the original Georgie and Mandy. In the first, the titular couple dines at La Roa Cantina, the same Mexican restaurant where they first met. In the second, guest star Rebecca Metz makes an appearance as Officer Gilroy, whose character was responsible for arresting Mior and closing down the IIT backroom casino. In Season 7 of Young Sheldon, an entertaining side plot involving Connor, Mandy's brother, emerges amidst all the marital turmoil. The fact that he and Jay Leno, host of The Tonight Show, share a birthday is something he tells his family about. Since then, the two have become friends. During the tag scene, Audrey listens to the answering machine and finds a message from Lou in it. Lou invites Connor to join Branford Marshall and the Tonight Show band on stage whenever he's in Los Angeles. Although there was a nod to the ridiculous plot point from Season 7 with M.I.M. Moe's apprehension for overseeing an illicit gambling operation, this marked the first episode in which Young Sheldon did not make a crossover cameo. Even though I longed for Missy's return, I'm glad the episode was able to carry on without the Coopers. Independent viability is essential for spin-offs. It's fine to introduce recognizable faces in the pilot, but it becomes problematic when the show's appeal is based on them, even if it's intended to be about other people. Episode 3 of Season 1 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage passed its first big test since it was well-written, had hilarious gags, and held my attention. The episode review of Mandys Debt highlights a pretty standard plot device used by both comedies and dramas, dating back to classics like I Love Lucy. The episode's emphasis on Mandy's credit card problem deviated from the norm. Rather than focusing on Georgie's credit card problems or Mandy secretly charging a lot of money, the story revealed that Mandy had racked up $112,000 in debt, with a portion of it stemming from medical expenditures incurred by an ex-boyfriend. Is it true that medical bills were worse in the 90s compared to now? It seems that a sprained wrist was the cause of the massive debt. Whatever the case may be, Georgie was right to be irritated that Mandy hadn't informed him of this before they got married. He could be held equally responsible for Mandy's debt if they were to tie the knot, provided it was no older than 7 years. Indeed, the identical statutes that purportedly allowed credit card debt to be erased from a person's record after 7 years were in place 30 years ago. However, Georgie's wrath at Mandy and her parents for keeping this obligation a secret seemed disproportionate to the wrongdoing. He shouldn't have gotten Ruben involved because this wasn't that important to him. Naturally, the age gap is another major issue. Gaps in age become less significant as individuals age. However, given the number of comments made about Mandy's age relative to Georgie, the recurring theme of someone saying he's just a kid compared to her, and even the ex-boyfriend's opinion that Georgie looked very young, it's reasonable to assume that their differing life stages will eventually cause them to fall out. The show can't go on if they split up, and a whole season of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage has just been ordered, so I'm hoping that won't happen for a long time. Episode 3 of Season 1 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage featured Connor in a somewhat more favorable light. With the exception of his need to eat his food while standing in the corner, which was more of a quirk than anything else, the fact that Connor and Jay Leno share a birthday, and that Connor isn't a loose band provided him with a backstory beyond his outlandish behavior and statements. It was also thoughtful of him to include an answering machine message that was humorous without belittling Connor's uniqueness. After the argument between Georgie and Mandy, he showed some passion for Georgie, even though he didn't understand anything, which disproved the notion that he was simply strange and isolated. These enhancements don't change the fact that he is clearly meant to replace Sheldon instead of just being Sheldon with a twist. He should be shaped into a unique persona. Here we go, Georgie and Mandy acolytes. Is there anything you found interesting in this episode?